Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Isaiah, who you will know as Fulham in Dayton. So on this show, we're going to talk about a lot of interesting stuff. We're going to talk about the latest in the transfer window. Him and I are going to go through the situation with Diego Carlos. And then, of course, on Joachim Andersen, we're going to talk about that because there's been some interesting transfer speculation just today. But as always, I always want to mention, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Okay, well, Isaiah, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Russ. I really appreciate you having me on.
Okay, well, I'm so happy to have you on. Really am happy. So let's get going, okay? And let's talk about, well, actually, before we talk about the transfer speculation, okay, let's talk about Fulham signing Jorge Cuenca, center back from Villarreal on a 4-year deal, I believe. Let me just pull this up. Sorry about that. It's a 4-year deal from Villarreal. Your thoughts on Jorge Cuenca joining Fulham? I didn't know much about him. It happened very quick. So what do you make of this?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, I pulled this up. We didn't know about it until it happened. I'm on Twitter or X, like you are, constantly following these transfer rumors, and out of the blue, not only are we linked to him, but we're signing. I mean, it just, like you said, it happened so quickly. But anybody who's played Football Manager or FIFA knows who this guy is and knows that he's a talented youngster, and I feel like it's an absolute coup that we were able to bring him in. I mean, I wasn't tracking this. I wasn't expecting it. I never saw his name linked to us once. And as soon as I did, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We are really finally, after years and years and years, taking that center back position seriously. We are looking for depth. We're looking for talented people to bring in and establish ourselves defensively. I mean, last year we had 3 talented center backs, but I think at one point Tosin was hurt for a good portion of the season. We were really only down to 2. So being able to add that depth, someone who can play on the left side, someone who plays the ball like he does, I mean, really gives us, I think, more options and gives us more strength where we have been really lacking over the last, 8-10 years.
Okay, excellent. So he is a left-sided center back. So what do you make of this? Do you think he is just someone that, as we're just going to being able to help fill in, or could he possibly mix and match a little bit at the center back position?
Well, I don't think Bassi is a right-sided center back, so I don't see him sliding over at any point and Cuenca playing on the left. I haven't personally seen Cuenca play on the right. I did see that he has a couple times. I don't think he's going to be merely a substitute. There's no reason for us to bring someone in that's that young, that talented, and with that kind of upside that he has, just to use him off the bench. I don't see that. I think Marco's got a plan for him. We may run with three center backs at one time, and if we do, I mean, think of the strength and the power. I mean, that'd be an impressive back line.
Okay, excellent. Okay, excellent stuff there, my friend. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about some transfer speculation. Everyone likes transfer speculation. So let's talk about what David Ornstein in The Athletic tweeted out. He said, Fulham submit offer to sign Joachim Andersen from Crystal Palace, a £20 million bid last night. Crystal Palace want more, towards $40 million. Talks continue. We're going to be talking about Diego Carlos coming up. But what do you make of this? Now, I would be all for it, but here's the thing. I think that Crystal Palace want a lot more. And I also think when we talk about Diego Carlos, I think we're farther along with that situation than this. I think this is possibly a ploy to get Aston Villa to move quicker on Carlos. That's where I'm going on this. If I'm reading the tea leaves, I think this was put out there. I'm not saying that it's not legitimate, but I think it was also to put a little pressure on Aston Villa with Diego Carlos.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We have a history with Andersen, obviously. I mean, I think one of the worst things that I've had to endure is watching Andersen just absolutely terrorize our front line every time we played Crystal Palace in the last 2-3 years. I hate it. I hate it because I love the guy, and he put his blood, sweat, and tears into the black and white while he was here. Yes. Do I think that we put in a bid? I absolutely do. I think Ornstein wouldn't have tweeted it. He's a reliable guy. If he says it happened. Do I think we're really serious about it? No, I really don't. I think you are dead on. This is us putting pressure on Villa, trying to get a lower price for Diego Carlos. Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent stuff. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about what was said by Fabrizio Romano on Twitter. So this is from Fabrizio. Now we're going to talk about Diego Carlos. I understand Fulham and Aston Villa are close to reaching an agreement for Diego Carlos. Talks at very advanced stages between clubs. Still some work to do to structure a deal and personal terms, unquote. Okay. So what are your thoughts about the speculation? Do you believe it? And then let's talk about the player, because I believe that there's a potential history with Marco in the past. Not that Marco directly, but he probably knows the player a little bit from Diego's past. So what are your thoughts about this?
So this is one, I know we've been linked to him for quite a while now, and he'd be an interesting. I don't see him starting. I don't see him taking over for Diop. I do think that he would add some strength, and I think that he would be a really important signing for us, and it would show, again, like I said earlier, how seriously we're taking that defensive line. I just saw a few seconds ago on X that our friend at Fulham Transfer posted that it may not be as far along as Fabrizio had led us to believe.
Okay.
Still, I think that one is going to happen, and I like the way that we've addressed so far our targets this window. It doesn't seem like it's scattershot. Like we're trying to sign a bunch of people at one time. It seems like whether it's Ali Mack or Tony Khan, whoever it is that is heading our transfer negotiations, they're taking it one step at a time, one player at a time. They're addressing that one person. If it happens, great. If not, we're moving on to the next. I mean, McTominay is a good example of that. Yeah. I think we got priced out, gone. We're moved on to the next target, and we're handling our business very well this window. And I think he's gonna be here before United. Whether or not he plays, obviously Marco's got a plan, but I think we're gonna have him in the side before United.
Okay, excellent there, my friend. Thank you very much for your thoughts on that. I tend to agree with you. And again, what's interesting here, and I'll ask you this, Isaiah. Diego Carlos is an experienced center back, right center back. Do you think that Marco's plan, if this does to come to fruition, even though we are getting some conflicting reports, that he's being brought in to be the right starting center back, or do you think it's still Diop's to lose?
I think it's Diop's to lose, honestly. Losing Tosin as much as I'm hurting that we lost him. I'm also kind of glad being that he went to the blue side of the island. I don't even want to say the team's name. When he left and went there, I was just like, all right, well, I'm never going to speak your name again. You're not on we're not on speaking terms, sir. But losing him was a big blow. I think Diop, this is his position. He is going to be that right-sided anchor until he loses the position. I think Diego Carlos coming in is going to add some pressure. I think that is Marco's way of saying, hey, we believe in you. However, if you don't perform, we have a replacement. And, if Diego Carlos was 7 years younger, I would say it's his position. But obviously, he's not. And I think this is just a way of adding depth and also motivating Diop to be as good as we know he's capable of being.
Okay, I'm actually going to disagree with you here, Isaiah. I actually think that they are looking for a starting right center back. Now, again, Diop has been up and down. I always like to talk about Diop a little bit like Philippe Senderos. Now, others that might not know Philippe Senderos, there was usually a mistake in him, a match, And I think Diop has that as well. Tosin had it. So Diego Carlos, I'm thinking they are looking for a replacement. That's my thoughts on it, but only time will tell if he becomes a Fulham player. But I'm fine with the situation right now. The only issue I have, Isaiah, is that I'm disappointed on. And I've been just harping on this. And I'm disappointed that Luke DeFigueros, I don't think, got a shot here at right center back. And I think that he is a bright talent. I'm also disappointed that Devin Tanton went on loan to Chesterfield. Nothing against Chesterfield, but he went to League Two. And based on the article I read after his first appearance for Chesterfield, it was claiming he was man of the match. So that just tells you how good Devin Tanton is.
Yeah.
I understand sending players out on loan. I don't begrudge that, as long as there's a plan behind it. But Luke, I think, is farther along even than Tanton, and I was hoping he would have a chance to start with Fulham this season. You and I saw him in Philadelphia, and he looked ready a year ago to contend. I'm not saying be the starting right center back, but I think he has a bright future, and I'm disappointed, Isaiah. You know, you and I were sitting watching the match. I think we might have even talked a little bit about that. What are your thoughts about Luke?
So he's someone, when we talk about versatility, he's someone who can play that right back position as well. He's not just the static right center back. He's huge. He's a giant guy, but he's also not. I don't look at him the same way I looked at Tosin as a 6'4" lanky defender who didn't have the kind of mobility. He's someone who can handle the ball. I saw him, I believe it was in Philadelphia during the game. It was either during the warm-ups or during the game. He was doing these little tricks with the ball, and I thought, man, this is somebody who could probably play defensive mid and maybe even, fill in an emergency situation in the midfield. He has good control of the ball. He's got good awareness. His physicality is there. I think the only thing that plays against him in my mind is the experience and the youth aspect. I think, Marco, looking at Tanton, this is a good example. Tanton is ready. Tanton is somebody, you mentioned this a week or so ago. He's somebody who could fit in this side. And easily, if we sold Tete, he would easily be on the bench every game.
Totally agree.
I look at Fig Roll the same way. That guy could easily be on the bench. He's somebody that I would put right now, and this is going to be one of my sensational comments. I put him on par with Ream in capability, and I just don't think that he has the same kind of mindset, the same kind of killer instinct, or the experience. And I think maybe a year more. I don't think we should send him out on loan, but if we do, that extra year of experience is only going to benefit him.
Okay. And I think he's destined for loan. The fact that he has not featured on these preseason friendlies tells me that. So I think he's going somewhere on loan. He did travel with him, but he hasn't played. So that, to me, tells me that he's going to go out on loan. And that disappoints me, just like the Tanton situation disappoints me. I have a feeling some of this comes from just Marco's philosophy. He allows the players to train. Again, Josh King has featured. You had Marshall Godot featuring, but I don't see them being with again, maybe Josh King might. And that would be a step in the right direction, because I want Marco to basically really get our youngsters more involved with Fulham's first team. And Josh King is, again, that's an exciting player as well. But I want to see more of these young players. Yeah. I think it's a way, Isaiah, for Fulham's future to be more stable, is not just to go in the transfer window, which we're talking about right now, but if you have players that you're developing, why shouldn't they be part of your mix as well? Why, and again, in the case of Jay Stansfield goes out on loan again. I'll be disappointed. I would rather, and this might be a hot take, but I would rather sell Jay at this point, because if you don't have him in your long-term plans, if he's not staying with Fulham this year, in my opinion, he's not in your long-term plans. So don't delay the inevitable. Just sell him. Do not have that player go out on loan. I just disagree with another loan spell for Jay Stansfield. You know who he is at this point. So I want these young players to be part of the Fulham system. But if they're not, Isaiah, and you and I are used to this, and we won't bore people on sports here in America, especially Major League Baseball, but you have prospects that you use and trades, and that's a similar situation that you can use with players that are not going to be part of your mix for the future. You can sell them, you can move them along. As I said on a prior show, Isaiah, find them a home. But in the case of Tanton, the Frigaroles, and Josh King, I think they're part of Fulham's future. I'm not sure if Jay Stansfield is, though.
Yeah, so Stansfield is someone that I have. What was it yesterday? That was the anniversary of his father's passing. I think it was yesterday. And he's somebody that I don't look at him the same way that I've looked at other, Fulham academy graduates or academy players. I look at him as somebody who is destined for the Premier League. He may not be, a world-class top 6, number 9, but he is somebody who is going to perform at the Premier League level for years and years and years to come. I think it is kind of sad to me that we don't seem to have him in our long-term plans.
Yeah.
He played yesterday in the behind closed doors friendly.
Yep.
Scored two. I mean, come on. Regardless of who it is that he's playing against, he has that scoring capability. He has it in him to be an incredibly, incredibly talented guy, incredibly talented striker at the Premier League level. And I understand funding our transfers by selling our academy graduates. I understand that it's pure profit. It's going to make us or give us the ability to sign players. But we also don't want to be giving away our talented youngsters on the cheap, especially early in their career. And that's what I think we would be doing. He's only 21.
Okay.
We've got time.
Okay. So I see the counter to that. You want to see if his value can go up. I get that.
Yes.
His value can go up, and then you're basically giving him one more chance, maybe next season. His value might rise because he's still only 21 years old. That's actually a valid point by you. That's a good counter to my argument. That's very good there, Isaiah. Okay. So, and I also want to share this comment from my friend Chris Goodwin, who happens to be a Liverpool supporter. So this is what he says. I think managers are not brave enough to play young players in the Premier League. What are your thoughts about that, Isaiah?
No, totally agree.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Good example of that is Emile Smith Rowe.
Well, there you go.
So you look at some of these, like Harvey Elliott, when he went to Liverpool, they sent him out on loan. He could have fit in that side. Harvey Elliott is one of those players who had the talent at 17 years old to feature in a Premier League side. And they sent him out on loan, and I think they were waiting for him to screw it up, and he didn't. He proved that he was worth it. He proved that he had the talent and the ability, brought him back in, slid him in, on the wing, and he's worked out. I agree completely that managers – think about this, though. What happens if a manager loses 8 games because they're starting a young side? They're going to get sacked. They're gone. They don't have the same kind of leniency that maybe us in the American sports realm are used to, where a manager can have a year to try out their youngsters, and if they fail, so what? They've got the next year. It doesn't work that way. If it doesn't work out, you're gone. So you have to succeed, and you have to succeed right now.
Right. Now, I understand it. This is from our friend Steve Reynolds. He was actually in Portugal. So he's in Portugal. The only player who looked comfortable was Pagliarini. Now, Pagliarini is another young player that when I watched the first match, I thought, wow, he really shined. And so, again, another player. And I think at some point, developing is great, but I think at some point implementing them into the first team is very important. Now, I'm glad that you brought up Emile Smith Rowe, because you and I are going to have a lengthy discussion on him, because he got squeezed out of Arsenal, which is insane to say. We all see the talent. Everyone was screaming to me about how talented he is. Well, we're seeing it already. We are seeing it. So why was he not given a chance? Well, because Arsenal is in the business of trying to win the Premier League. So that's their focus. So they're going to bring in more and better players. And we're going to talk about a player that got squeezed out. Sorry, Chris, I'm not happy about what happened to Fabio here. We're going to talk about that right now, because that leads us into talk about Fabio. This is the last time, I promise everyone, I'm going to talk about Fabio Carvalho. I'm not going to mention him on the show anymore. partially because of the team he's going to, which I think is really irritating. Him and Tosin, I don't blame supporters for being really upset about their choices of teams that they went to, okay? Because let's be honest, Fabio has a voice here of where he wants to go with Liverpool. And, if he wants to go to Brentford, he probably can go to Brentford. Well, I'm telling you, he must have had some say in this. So we could say that this is all Liverpool, but the player usually has a little bit of a say in it. So let's talk about this. I saw this morning, and it looks like it's getting close. So according to Lyle Thomas from Sky Sports, Fabio Carvalho today is undergoing his medical with Brentford ahead of a £27.5 million move from Liverpool, unquote. Okay, so let's talk about this. This one has really irritated me because, one, I wanted Fabio back with Fulham, but as I saw the players that were coming in, I knew that it was really not going to fit in for him coming back. We got Ryan back. That makes me happy. Fabio moves on, it looks like, to Brentford. The kicker here is that reportedly Fulham have a sell on here. I believe, again, reportedly about 20%. So they're going to get a piece of this. So that's not so terrible. But what are your thoughts about Fabio going to Brentford? Because I couldn't think of a team that irritates me as much as this. Well, there are several, but Brentford are in there. So what are your thoughts about him deciding, or Liverpool, I should say, deciding, but I'm sure he has a voice here, as I said, going to Brentford.
Yeah, I'm pulling up a message that I received yesterday, and this message really encapsulated my entire thought process on this move, and that was, this is a Brentford desperation move. It was Alex Morel, Fulham fan, 1989. Shout out to you. Thanks for the message. We lost. This was not a anybody who's been following Fulham long enough knows that we lose talented youngsters fairly often, and it's unfortunate. But if you look back at the specific time frame when Scott Parker was in charge, we lost some of the best youth talent that we have ever developed. O'Reilly, Carvalho, Sessegnon, I don't necessarily put the blame directly on Parker, but still, we lost these incredibly talented youngsters.
Luca Della Torre.
Yeah, exactly. The American international Luca Della Torre. So we're sitting now in a position where we're looking at our youngsters pulling in almost £30 million in a transfer, and we let them go. I think we got $5 million. We missed out on a big money move by keeping him here. Do I think that was? I don't want to rehash the obvious and blame Scott Parker, even though every time I hear his name, it makes me want to vomit. I think this is a Brentford move. This is more of Brentford needing anyone, and not being able to find anyone. They don't play the kind of style that Carvalho fits in well with. So I don't understand it from that aspect. And the other thing is he really any better now than he was when he left Fulham 2 years ago? Honestly, is he worth 30 million pounds, 27.5 if you want to be specific? Is he really worth that? I just don't see it. I would love to have him back in if we could get him for 10 million. I think that's genuinely what he's worth. He still needs time on the bench. He still needs to be developed. He is not a Premier League quality starter, and I don't understand it from that aspect. Brentford have a reputation for developing youngsters and making really shrewd moves, and I think this is one that, just from my perspective, I don't get it at all. I genuinely do not understand it.
This is a strange one. And listen, I was not happy when Fabio decided to go to Liverpool. And I know my friend Chris is listening, and I tweeted out yesterday when I heard this news, I said, shame on Liverpool. Because Liverpool, I don't think, have done this player enough to warrant what they're doing now. They're basically giving up on him. Now, what I had heard when this move was about to happen way back then, and in fact, I want to say the January before that, when it didn't go through, was, oh, don't worry, Russ. He's in great hands because Jurgen Klopp wants him. Jurgen Klopp wants him. So don't worry. He's a young player. He's part of Liverpool's future. This is what I kept hearing over and over again. It's funny because I heard the same thing about Ryan Sessegnon with Mauricio Pochettino. How did that work out? So in both cases, the situation changed because the manager changed. In this situation, Klopp leaves and they get rid of him. They just discard him. I think it's just terrible by Liverpool for giving up on a young player. To your point, he has not developed enough. I agree with you to warrant being a starter in the Premier League. Well, he might get his chance now with Brentford. And that actually saddens me. Like I said, where he's going does not interest me whatsoever. In fact, it irritates me. But you know what? People make decisions. Fabio, as others have said to me, made the decision to go to Liverpool. Now he's, again, I truly believe, part of in this decision-making process to go to Brentford. So that's what ends up happening. I just think it's a shame, Isaiah, because we both know, we've watched. I still believe there is a quality, talented player in there. But I said the same thing about Ryan Sessegnon too. Yeah. So where does it come down to that the potential doesn't live up to what we thought it was going to turn into? Like I said, Ryan Sessegnon right now is basically getting another lease on life. That's the way I look at it. I think the same thing's happening right now to Fabio, even though I don't like where he's going. But at what point do we say to both of these players, you know what? You didn't live up to the hype.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to have a long leash at Brentford. I think for the amount of money that they paid, they're going to expect him to produce, and they're going to expect him to perform probably unfairly. This might be unfair. They're probably looking for him to perform at a higher level than he is capable. And I admit wholeheartedly that I have a soft spot for Fabio. I wish he was still with Fulham. I wish he never left. But do I blame him a little bit? Do I blame his agent? Probably more than him. Do I blame the management at both Liverpool and Fulham? Yes. I don't think anyone has done this kid any favors in his career. Anyone, agent, advisors, anyone. And I think that he's in a position right now where a lot is going to be asked of him, and he may not have the ability to perform at that level yet. And what is it going to do to his confidence? And what is it going to do to him long term if he is brought in on a big money move to a team like Brentford that needs someone to fill a slot? Obviously not where he can play best, but fill a slot, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on him. And if he doesn't live up to it right away, what's going to happen to him? What's going to happen to this kid? Is he going to end up like Sessegnon, where he's cast aside again? I mean, what's going to happen?
Okay, I'm going to share this comment from my friend Chris. I would have loved to have known what the plan was for Carvalho when Liverpool signed him. So would I. I would certainly like to know what they have with their intention. Okay. Before we move on, I just want to mention that when Isaiah, you and I decided to do this show live, you might have seen me doing some stuff in the background. Unfortunately, we're not live on X. For whatever reason, X did not go live. So I actually retweeted out our YouTube post. So hopefully everyone can get on live there, because I was expecting a huge live audience. So if you're on X or, and again, if you're on YouTube, you're probably obviously with us. But unfortunately, X did not go live today, and I'll have to fix that moving forward, because I do not know why it did not go live today. So we don't have as much of a live audience as we normally do, Isaiah, but we have a live audience. So we're going to do our best to put on a great show for them, and then obviously people listening to the podcast, because Isaiah and I have been looking forward to doing this show, and we're going to give you a great show. Okay, let's see what else I got in the comment section. That's very funny. Blame the Musk. Okay, well, I can do that. Thank you, Chris, for that. I was actually pretty disappointed to start the show, and I couldn't go out live on X. I'm like, what's going on? I've been trying everything I can to make it work, but I could not make it work. But you know what? It's okay. Okay. Coming up next, we're going to take a little bit of a break, because afterwards we're going to talk about Emile Smith Rowe, and we're going to end with some topics that I'm going to be under the heading, yeah, but Russ. Okay, Isaiah, let's move on to the second half of the show. And I talked to you off air that I wanted to spend some time talking about Emile Smith Rowe. And like I said, I was inundated with Arsenal supporters telling me you don't understand how lucky you are to have this player. And I was, I wouldn't say skeptical. I've watched him play. So I knew that he was a good player. But I'm thinking, how is he going to fit in with the Fulham players? How is he going to fit into Marco's system? Even though here's a player that has so much potential. We're talking about young players. How long is it going to take him to get up to speed? So I think we already have our answer. Not long at all. So, So right now, let's talk about the situation with Emile Smith Rowe, because the topic is, do you think Marco is building Fulham around Emile Smith Rowe? I truly believe that, because before I thought basically the player that affected Fulham the most the last two seasons was Joachim, and I thought that he was pivotal to how Fulham played for two seasons. I think that was why it was so important for Fulham to get Joao 2 seasons ago, so Marco could build around Joao, make sure he had that anchor, protecting the back four and making sure things go forward. And he did his job extremely well. We still do not have a replacement for Joao Polina. We'll talk about that and but Russ. But let's talk about why I think this is a different move by Fulham under Marco. I think it's a move that's going to see Fulham be more aggressive, more offensive with this player, because I'm curious to see where he finally ends up. Is he going to be the number 10? Is he going to play on the left? Is he potentially going to play a little bit deeper? Or is Marco going to try to mix and match him along with Pereira, which is interesting? Is he going to move the two of them around to basically get the most out of them during the match? Are they going to just change positions a lot? It's fascinating, because I think this player is going to affect Fulham, not just this year, but for years to come, as long as he's a Fulham player, because I think they are building it around him. They are going to try to get the most out of him, and the players are going to feed off that. If you've watched the friendlies and you've seen his impact, you can already see the partnerships building up, whether he's on the left, coming from the left, going over to the left. You have him over there. You have Anthony Robinson. You have Iwobi. You have that partnership. But on the right, if you're going to reach him on the right, you have Tete. You have Adama. And then, of course, you have up front, you have either Muniz or our Mexican striker. So you have Jimenez. So you have options. But I think a key part of Fulham scoring goals this season and getting everyone involved is going to be this player. I think he's going to create a lot of assists for his teammates and score a lot of goals. So I think Fulham are building their team this season for years to come around Emile Smith Rowe.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. I think he is going to be. I have a question for you, Russ.
Yeah.
Do you think we sign Smith Rowe if we don't have Joao 2 years ago? Do you think that we have the clout to bring in a player like ESR this summer?
That's a great question. So you're basically saying, because we were able to get a player of Joao's talent, and I think Smith Rowe is at that level, would he have come if Polina didn't come? That's a great question. I don't know, because I don't know if Fulham are still in the Premier League without Polina, but it's that level of player. So I think what's great about Emile Smith Rowe, Isaiah, is that he is that talented player. I said Fulham need 3 to 4 players of the level of Polina. Well, you've lost Polina, so now you need a few more of them. And I think they might be hopefully on their way to getting a couple of them. I would really like to see that. But Smith Rowe is at that level. So for me, I think that probably helped, but I think more importantly, it's Marco Silva. I think the reason why Smith Rowe came to Fulham is Marco Silva. And you've seen the comments. I think he bought into the program, the system that Marco is building here. And I think that he made it clear. I'm paraphrasing. This is my opinion. Marco made it clear to Emile Smith Rowe, listen, we're building everything around you. That's what I think was a selling point to Emile Smith Rowe, the project, because I remember talking about the project. So I think Paulinho coming here helped, but I think Marco's the bigger factor.
Absolutely. I think Willian is an example of the draw of Marco. Iwobi, I don't think Iwobi comes if we don't have Marco.
Yes, yes.
I mean, most Leno, I think, was looking for an escape, but do you think he would have chosen Fulham if we didn't have Marco? I mean, look at the year that he led our team in the championship. Look at the way that we played. We didn't play like a confident championship team. We played like a confident Premier League team. And I can remember watching some of those games and hearing the commentary and some of the folks that would comment and say, this is not a championship team. This is a Premier League team that just happens to be in the championship. And that all goes back to Marco. And to your point, Smith Rowe does not put on a Fulham shirt if we don't have Marco. And I think that does come back to Paulinho. I think that the fact that we had a world-class player on our side for 2 years, it shows that we are a serious team, that we're a serious organization, a serious club that has designs on winning and not just surviving every year. We want to continue on and push for Europe. It's not a team like we were in the late 2000s, early teens that's just happy to be in the Premier League. That's not us. We're looking to be in Europe every year. And I think that is the kind of attitude that Marco has instilled in the team. And when we bring in people like Paulinho and Iwobi and Smith Rowe and Leno, it shows that we really are a team that wants to be here every year and also wants to be at the top of the table every year.
No, it's a great point. And getting back to Emile Smith Rowe.
Sorry.
No, very good comments. I want to just share this to you and get your thoughts on this, Isaiah. Emile Smith Rowe, I truly believe, is going to help Fulham bring in better quality players.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a player like Diego Carlos doesn't consider Fulham. Maybe, and again, we don't know the situation from Joachim Andersen's perspective. Was he contacted about the situation with Fulham? David Ornstein is a true reporter, and I believe his sources are impeccable. So I believe the speculation. Would Andersen know that Fulham are interested? I don't know. You would think that maybe he would know something. I don't know. Again, there's all tampering. Who knows? But I will just say that players are going to want to come to Fulham right now because of Marco. I'm going to say because of Iwobi, because of Leno, because they have quality players. I will even say Jedi might bring in some quality players as well. But Emile Smith Rowe shows intent. And I said this, and someone came back to me and says, well, it'll be a sign of ambition if he stays after 2 years. And I get that. But I think it's a sign of intent right now. And I think if you are a player that, say, decide between, I'll just throw out a couple of names, Crystal Palace, Fulham, and Wolves, which team are you going to pick? You're going to look at, if the money's the same, right? Say the money's the same. Which team would you want to go? Which team has the most ambition? And I will argue right now, the team with the most ambition is Fulham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. All things being equal this year, and all things being money, because the managers aren't equal. I mean, yeah, name escapes me right at the moment. I'm sorry, the Wolves manager. Fantastic manager. But Wolves are not in the same category as Fulham this year. They're just not. They're going to be at the bottom of the table, scrapping with the 3 promoted sides for relegation. It's the reality of it. And I know you're going to cover that later. I don't mean to steal your thunder, but
nope.
Fulham right now is the bigger team, is the bigger draw, and someone like Andersen, who's been here before, knows the organization, knows the club. If he's given an opportunity to come here where there's a chance that we could end the season high enough to play in Europe next year, or he could be at Palace where they might be 15th, 16th in the table, I think that he's going to choose Fulham every day of the week. It's just I can't see a scenario where someone is going to choose Palace unless there's something outside of our control. They're going to choose Fulham every time. Right now, they're going to choose us because they know that we take it seriously, because they know the style of play. I mean, honestly, Russ, we've been following this team for a long time. Have you seen a more exciting? I mean, I look back at the Slavisa years, the beautiful passing. Have you seen a more exciting style of play in the last 15, 16 years?
I would argue no. And I'm glad that you brought up Slavisa because those are some of my favorite seasons. And stylistically, those were great. And I thought last season, I actually preferred Isaiah last season to the season before that, even though that was a better season record-wise. In the table, it was 10th to 13th. But I prefer last season because I could see something building. And what's interesting, if you look at this team, and they've already talked about it in interviews. If you watch the interviews with Marco, he talks about Iwobi being here since the beginning of the preseason. And what a difference that has made. He's been getting rave reviews. Yeah. So you have that. They are coming together. What makes this fun to watch, and I saw this in the first friendly, and I'm going to be honest with you, I've been away and haven't had a chance to watch the other two friendlies. But the flow has been phenomenal. The way that they were moving the ball so quick. Adama Traore on one side, Iwobi on the left. It is scary. And this was before even watching Emile Smith Rowe. You add him in, it's basically you're throwing a joker in the mix because, you're throwing someone that teams are going to struggle to deal with. And I'm talking about Emile Smith Rowe. So you throw him in, you've just changed how Fulham play. That's why I wanted to do this section about is Fulham building around Emile Smith Rowe, because Fulham are a different team right now. They're an exciting team. Might be the most exciting team I can remember. I still need more proof. I want to see it in actual games, but it could be the most exciting team we've seen since I've been watching since 2007. That's when I started watching Fulham. It's just a style of play. It's Marco's style, but he might finally have the players to play the way he really wants to play. That's the big thing. I think Emile Smith Rowe is key to that. And what's fascinating, like I mentioned, is the situation with Pereira. It's like, how do the two of them play together? Do they play together? Is Pereira expendable? I don't think so, but I think it's fascinating to see if they're all going to play together. But I also think it's a tell that they played together yesterday. I would expect this to be your starting 11 or close to it against Manchester United. It basically is, a dress rehearsal. Yesterday was a dress rehearsal. And I think they passed with flying colors. I didn't see the match. I've heard mixed. But the fact that they were able to score some goals and also get a clean sheet, and on top of it, basically just get 90 minutes in their boots, I think is very important. It's not all about style at that point. And you're on the road. You're in Germany. You're not at home. So I look forward to seeing this team. I cannot wait to Friday. I got to be honest with you. Yeah. I'm not going to predict the game today, but I'm excited about this. I really am. I have a good feeling about Friday, but we shall see. It's the first game. And like I said, I will be previewing the upcoming season probably over the next couple of days. But I'm excited, Isaiah. And I think Fulham supporters, we're going to be talking about coming up next, the but I think if you go beyond the but, we'll talk about that. Even the situation right now, you should be excited, Isaiah.
Yeah, so two things I wanted to bring up to you. I don't know if you follow Fulham as closely, the club page, but looking at how this team interacts with each other, the relationship that they have, I don't know that we've seen this kind of insight from from any kind of social media or anything. We haven't seen this kind of relationship between the players in the last couple of years. I feel like this team is closer. I feel like they're, when you bring in Smith Rowe, who's played with Iwobi, who's played with Leno, he just slots right in, not just on the field, but he slots right in the clubhouse. He fits in, is relationally with these guys like he's known them for years. And I think they are building around him. And the other point that I wanted to bring up is, even if they only keep him for 2 years, they purchased him for what, 34 million. If they can sell him for more than that, similar to what they did with Paulinho, we can still consider him to be the building block, because
Yeah.
they're going to take that investment and build even further when he does leave. So he is who they're building around and
Yep.
on for the near future.
I agree with that. Listen, I got some pushback when I did a show with Tony, and I love Tony. And Tony's like, well, Russ, the real building block is if he stays and you just don't flip him. And I understand that. But in the world that we live in, we obviously would like him to love the club and stay for years to come. And the reality might be a little bit different. We might have to sell him at some point. And if you do, you do. But I think you're going to make a lot of money from it. Before we move on to the final section of the show, I just want to comment on what you just said, the team camaraderie. If you're not watching this and seeing what's on social media from Fulham, you got to get a feel that this team has come together. And I've tweeted this out, Isaiah. I've not seen team camaraderie like this in a long time from Fulham. Now, like I said, the season hasn't begun yet, but they look like they're coming together as a team. I look at other teams, and there have been teams with Fulham that I thought were played as individuals. I think some of those Scott Parker teams played as individuals. I think there were factions among those teams because of our manager, Scott Parker, okay? I don't think that there was this core togetherness. I think we're watching this, and that to me also excites me because I think they're playing for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited. You know, it's funny. We shouldn't downplay this. The fact that Iwobi, Emile Smith Rowe have played together, I think is huge. I think it's huge that they know each other, that we have this former Arsenal players. We have 3 of them. I mean, think about that. They know each other, and they're all, you know, I don't know, maybe it'll help us recruit some more Arsenal players down the road. Who knows? But I just want to just share a couple comments. I just shared one from Steve Reynolds. This is from Warren. He says, if ESR stays fit and a couple of quality signs, we should be looking at least 10 points better off. I actually agree with that. I totally agree with that, Warren. I think that's a good call. And like I said, I'll be going into my predictions on a future show, but that's actually a very good point. Okay, so here we are talking about the good, and I'm feeling good about this season. But what I also see, and I understand it because I do it as well, it's the yeah, but. And I'm calling this yeah, but Russ. So basically, it's what Fulham still need because we can be excited about the season, but it'll always be followed by yeah, but. So let's start with the first yeah, but, which is thoughts on the situation at right center back. I told you that I think that if they sign Diego Carlos, I think he'll end up being the starter. But how do you feel about the situation with Diop? Are you comfortable if it's only Diop?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think this is an opportunity. This year is his opportunity to establish himself as a top tier. I believe he can. I know that might be a hot take. A top tier Premier League right center back. I think this is his year to do that.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's move on to yeah, but Russ. Thoughts on the situation at backup goalkeeper. Now Benda has been getting a lot of criticism. I think duly noted. I've not seen him play, so I can't really judge it. But do you think that Fulham might look at another goalkeeper?
Yeah, I think we're in a position where we kind of have to. I think Wiccan's leaving, and really only having Benda as our backup. I think we're in a situation where we have to add some depth. No knock on Benda. I think he has the capability of being a solid backup if called upon. I think he'll do a job. However, I think adding depth or maybe even adding a certified number 2 would be a wise move on our part.
Okay, excellent stuff. All right, let's talk about conversation I think I have with Tony Gold every single time I talk to him on and off air. He wants to talk about the striker position. Now, Rodrigo Muniz, I talked to Tony often, says, well, he has his purple patches, but can you count on him for the entire season? What about Raul Jimenez? Can you count on him? So, and my friend Steve Reynolds mentioned it today that we probably need another striker. So what are your thoughts on the striker position?
Yeah, this is I really want, like I can feel it in my chest. I just want to explode and say, Rodrigo Muniz is our guy. I also hesitate. I believe that he is working his way into being the striker, the guy. But I think realistically, we need to have more depth. I don't think Raul is getting. Well, he's not getting any younger. He's
Yep.
not who he was when he was with Wolves. We saw that last year. He can score some goals. He can poach one or two. He's got the capability. He doesn't have the same pace. He doesn't have the same heading ability. He doesn't have what he used to have. Is he a good option, starting striking option for us long term? And long term meaning this season, no. And then if we let Stansfield go out on loan, I mean, legitimately, what do we have if Muniz gets hurt? God forbid, if Muniz gets hurt, then what?
Yeah, and that's actually a very good point. And I'm glad that you brought this up because I think that this is significant. And I don't think there's been enough talk about the fact that Rodrigo Muniz got the number 9 shirt. I think that speaks volumes. I don't think they give him that if they didn't believe in him. So I think they believe in him. But to everyone's point that I've talked to about this, their fear is 1, injury, like you mentioned, and 2, that he's going to go through a drought. And don't you need protection from that? Don't you need to hedge your bets? And I agree with that. I agree that they need to hedge their bets. But the problem is I don't see Fulham spending the amount of money that they need to spend on a proven striker. And then if they do that, that striker is going to want to start. So are you talking about a backup striker or are you talking about getting the guy? Because if you're talking about getting the guy, a proven striker, they never got that striker. They never used that Mitro money for a quote-unquote replacement. It would just be, it eventually just went to Rodrigo Muniz. So I don't know what they're going to do there. I would like them to have another option at striker. So I'm with everyone on that. I agree with that. Okay. So to end the show, of course, we got to go to the elephant in the room. We got to talk about Joao having no Joao. So what do we do here, Isaiah? What do Fulham do here? Because what is the plan? Is it going to be Sasa Lukic? Is it going to be Harrison Reed until we find a replacement? I'm sick and tired of seeing anything related to the name Andre. Okay, I don't want to talk about that person's name anymore unless he becomes a Fulham player. Okay, I am sick and tired of the name. Nothing against Andre. He looks like he's probably going to be a very good player. But I don't want to have a conversation about that. I just want to have a conversation on what you think needs to happen here because they need a defensive midfielder. You cannot let your best player go without replacing him. Now, Sasa Lukic can do a job. Harrison Reed can do a job. If they sign Emile Smith Rowe and don't get a replacement for Paulinho, shame on Fulham. Okay, I'm going to say it right now. They need a replacement. I don't know who it is. I don't want to mention that player that I'm not going to mention anymore. Is it going to be Calvin Phillips? Is it going to be McTominay? Those have all gone quiet. I don't know. In fact, I actually had a Fulham supporter who is, I know, watching live right now suggest to me, because you know what, Russ? Joachim Andersen has played defensive midfielder before. I'm like, no, they wouldn't do that. They would not do that. They wouldn't do that. But they need a defensive midfielder, my friend. I don't like going into the season with the options being Sasa Lukic and Harrison Reed. I think they can get by. I think that they can go to Manchester United, go to Old Trafford and win without that player. I truly believe that. But you're talking over a course of the season? No way. They need a defensive midfielder.
So I know you saw this. Skybet has Fulham as a 1-3 favorite for Calvin Phillips.
I did see that.
Come on. I mean, this is like this is going to turn into, like I mentioned when you were talking about the Emile Smith Rowe signing a couple weeks ago. This is going to turn into our that catastrophic year where we were looking for a striker and we had Diego Forlán. We had all of these names linked and no one came through the door. And I think we ended up with Rui Font. No offense to him, capable guy, just wasn't what we needed and couldn't score the goals we needed. Right now, that defensive mid position, I know in my heart that it's going to end up being Lukic for the Manchester United game.
Yeah.
What else do we have? Do I think he's going to be the guy long term? No, I don't. I think it's going to end up being the Brazilian, he who shall not be named.
Thank you.
It is going to be him. I'm quite confident that some of this sell-on money, you hear this kind of bantered about that the sell-on money from Carvalho is going to be used to up the bid. I think that's legitimate. I think it's going to happen. I hate that it's gone on like this. We always have one person in the window that gets dragged on and on and on. Every window, something like this happens. Either it's an outgoing or an ingoing. There's always that one person, and this is that instance. I feel good that we've moved on from McTominay because I don't think he's a defensive midfielder. I don't, and I'm glad that he's not being mentioned anymore.
Okay.
If it ends up being Phillips, no heartache. I think he can do a job for us. At this point, we cannot just bring in a body to bring in a body. And I think this goes along with what you were just saying. We have to spend that money. We have to spend it wisely, and it has to be someone who can perform at the Premier League level and who can provide that midfield anchor that we need.
I'm there with you, and I'll also mention a name that it's gone quiet on him, but Vinicius Souza from Sheffield United is another name that actually everyone says is probably the closest player that's to compare to João. So that is not something that I'm against. But I'm also would be for that player that I won't mention to come to Fulham. But what's going on with all of this, which is driving me crazy, that it's partially has to do with the media in Brazil. It's just driving me crazy, but also has to do with how Fulham do their business. Now, I have to give them a lot of credit. I want to give them a lot of credit for getting players in, but they do it in a certain way that's very reminiscent of my team here in New England that plays a different sport, that they are looking to win the deal. Now, one thing that I do know that I can actually know, I know this because Tony actually told me this. Yes, I spoke to Tony Khan. He was on the show several years ago, that he is very close to the Kraft family that owns the New England Patriots. The Kraft family and the Khans are very close. And you can tell in their business models are actually kind of close. They want to win business deals. It's important to them. I could give a flying fart about winning the business deal. Get the player. So that's what's frustrating. I agree with you that they might end up getting the player. But you know what? Get it done. Stop haggling over $5 million or whatever it is. Just get it done. You don't have to win the deal to say, hey, look at me. I won the deal. Enough with this. Get the player because it can affect your season. This team is on its way to potentially having a team that we could be very memorable in Fulham history. I think that they have the spine there, but they need other additions. And if you don't get the additions quickly enough, then you're going to hurt yourself. So F with winning the deal crap and get the player in. I'll just end with that. That's just it's my pet peeve, Isaiah. I just don't like that practice that when you are fighting over, say, $1 million or £2 million, I know it's not my money. Just get the deal done. Just get it done. Just say, you know what? We've haggled enough. We'll come up a little bit. Let's get it done.
The only counterpoint last year, Iwobi. Last year, it got dragged out, and he came in after the deadline, and he worked out pretty well. So I give Tony credit. I want to be his harshest critic every single window. I want to curse his name. However, he comes through for us. Even winning or losing a deal, he comes through for us.
No, I will give him credit. I will absolutely give him credit because I'll be critical of him when it's deserved, and I'm doing a little bit there. But I will actually basically balance that out with giving him credit, and he deserves credit. He absolutely deserves credit. It's easy to go at him. It's very easy. But you know what? It's probably harder to be honest and say, you know what? He's made some good business deals too. He's brought in some great players. So you know what? If you're going to give him criticism, you got to praise him too. You got to balance it out. So I will praise him too. Very good. All right, my friend. Wow, that hour flew by. I just want to thank you, my friend, for doing the show with me. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Loved it. Every second of it. Loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And I want to end with just mentioning that Isaiah on Twitter is Fulham in Dayton. Please follow him if you haven't already. I met him in Philadelphia last year, and we've been talking about for a while getting him on the show. Today is the day, and I hope you come back again.
Awesome. Thank you, Russ.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. Please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other phone supporters find us. That's going to do it for this episode. My name is Russ Goldman. He is Isaiah. Thank you again for always watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the talkSPORT Fan Network.